What's up, everybody? Welcome into Week 9 Fantasy Fridays. Back here with my guy Manny. How you doing today, man?
I could be better. I feel like you should have some blame in this for what happened
On Monday night.
last week, but you know what? It's all right. We won't. We'll move past it. I'll just say good game. It was expected, but good game. Good game.
Look, it's not nothing personal to the Commanders. We had some things we had to work out with Marcus Mariota. It happens that he had to start that game. That's really what it came down to. We apologize for that.
That was another part of the agenda. I felt like that was coming too, but yeah,
It is what it
it's
is.
all good. It is
Commanders
what it
get Jay
is.
Daniels back this week. Unfortunately, it seems like Terry McLaurin might have left his hamstring in Kansas City, so that's going to keep him out for another week, unfortunately. But we move forward as we get to what will be the midway point of the season. As crazy it is, as fast as it feels like it's flying by. But with that being said, we're here to go ahead and get the best of the best into you guys' lineup. Make sure you guys know who has a great matchup, who has the ability to get those big days as you get to the bulk of the fantasy season. Obviously, bye weeks are hidden. Now is the time to make those push into the playoffs as well. So I'll get it started with my fantasy quarterback start of the week. I'm actually going to stick with Aaron Rodgers versus Indianapolis. Has a good matchup versus that defense that has given up a lot of points to the quarterback position. The Colts are going to put up points on the Pittsburgh Steelers offense because of the way that they have been a buzzsaw the entirety of the year. What does that mean? We're going to get a lot of Aaron Rodgers dropping back, trying to keep up with them. I feel good about what he's going to have as far as an output versus this Colts team as well. Look for some good tight end production as well. Go ahead, hit me with your quarterback start of the week, Manny.
This week I'm going to go with Trevor Lawrence. I think, coming back from the bye, they got to iron some stuff out. I think, with Brian Thomas coming back, being healthy, hopefully he's, the clear headspace, ready to go. And then with Travis Hunter, who's supposed to be playing the most wide receiver he's been playing, recently. The last week he really saw his uptick in usage and wide receivers go up. But I think now that he's this after the bye, he's going to start hitting that post bye that usually we see with rookie wide receivers. I think he's comfortable. I think he has the ability. I think that's going to be the number one target for Travis and for Trevor. And I think that that's going to help him keep going against Vegas.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll see how they come out of the bye week with some adjustments along those lines too. Go ahead and let me know who's your running back start of the week.
Running back, unfortunately, I'm going to have to go with K9, Kenneth Walker. He's going up against our defense. Our run defense has been pretty bad at setting the edge, especially now that we lost, both of our edges. We do have some young playmakers on the edge too, but we're gonna have some trouble containing that. And I think that's what Kenneth Walker does best. He's going to create those explosive plays. I think he has an explosive run in every week, every game that he's played. So I think it's not going to stop here. I think the streak of 10+ yard rushes is going to continue. He might even have a couple. He might even score a TD, but it's probably going to have to be for 20 yards out because anything under than that, it's probably going to Charbonnet.
We'll see how things kind of go down the stretch for Kenneth Walker. He may be one of those guys that'll be a little bit more valuable in the second half of the season. Obviously, they use Charbonnet, understandably so, to make sure that Kenneth stays healthy and fresh throughout the regular season. As they continue to push forward, we'll see if that does change as they get into some different matchups and get down the stretch here. I'll go with my running back start of the week. It's going to be Tyrone Tracy. Unfortunately, due to the Cam Scottaboo injury, that opens up the opportunity for him to step back into the starting role in which he had last year, in which he performed, in my opinion, admirably and certainly was a value in fantasy drafts. One of the guys that I targeted and had on a lot of teams that helped me out last year. He now steps back into that starting role and has a great matchup versus the 49ers defense that has struggled a lot. They give up points to the running back position. They struggle in being able to stop the run. I think the Giants obviously have the opportunity to dump the ball off to Tyrone Tracy as well as Jackson Dart did for Cam Scottaboo. So I think that him stepping into that role will be once again valuable. And given the matchup, he is somebody that should be inserted into the fantasy lineups if you were able to get him on waivers for this week. Sticking there, I'll go with my wide receiver start of the week. Marvin Harrison Jr. for the Arizona Cardinals versus Dallas Cowboys. Obviously, a great matchup. We know how bad the Dallas Cowboys have been against the wide receiver position. This is an aspect where the Cardinals have kind of saw their season start to slip away. They had two tough, close losses with Jacoby Brissett. They have to get on their horse and they have to go on the road, or I should say, go and beat this Dallas Cowboys team on Monday Night Football and really prove that they have some life for the rest of the season. And that's going to involve getting their best wide receiver the football versus a really good matchup. Marvin Harrison Jr. has what it takes. They got to make sure that him and Kyler are on the same page. That's going to be my start of the week. Manny, who's your wide receiver start of the week?
You know, I feel bad for saying Jameson Williams last week. Not last week, but during week 7, and he laid out a complete dud. But I think going. I think now that the offensive coordinator, Coach Morton, he said that he's taking responsibility for not getting him involved, and they're going to make that a priority. They didn't say it was going to be this week, but the Vikings did give up a lot of big plays last week. Over the past couple weeks, honestly, and I think that's not going to stop here. I think with the emphasis on getting Jameson Williams the ball, especially bouncing back from his last performance, I think that's going to be something that's going to keep him going.
Yeah, look, the Lions have had a lot of success versus the Vikings defense, particularly in this golf Campbell era. JMO has been running a lot of sacrificial deep routes. We'll see if they can get him involved. Fortunately, to your point, it's only going to take one or two of those to hit for that to end up having you that fantasy return value as far as that is concerned. So we'll see if he can be able to connect on those, and they'll actually give him those opportunities, as the offensive coordinator said. Who's your tight end start of the week?
I'm going to stick in the same game. I'm going to stick with on the same team actually, with Sam Laporta. He's only scored double digits in I think 3 of his 7 outings. So some folks, if they drafted him early, and they're probably going to try end up starting him anyways. But you can probably feel confident starting him this week. He has a good matchup. Last week they gave up a lot of points to tight ends. I think usually he does pretty well against the Vikings. There's going to be kind of that, hey, we got the new TJ Hawkinson over here, that they kind of do every year. So I think that's this not. He's gonna. I think he'll probably find the end zone, but they'll also get him involved in the middle of the field as well.
Like, I think the Lions are going to be in for a big day versus the Vikings in general. So having two guys for their team in your lineup certainly makes a lot of sense. As for my tight end start of the week to go to wrap it up, I'm actually going to go against my team and Dalton Kincaid. I think that he has some really good matchups in the ways in which you can kind of get after our defense, particularly over the middle of the field. We saw some of the flat routes to tight ends for the Commanders work, especially early on in that game on Monday Night Football. I think he'll be able to take advantage of those with some of the athleticism that he brings to the table. I think that obviously they're going to get into a lot of heavy personnel sets on top of it with the way in which the Bills like to run their offense too. I think he will continue to be one of Josh Allen's favorite targets, maybe his favorite target, as far as what that wide receiver core has looked like so far this year. So Dalton Kincaid, I think, is in for a really good game on Sunday afternoon versus the Chiefs in that standalone matchup versus the Bills, as always, favorite. I appreciate you for coming by, Manny. Everybody, make sure you guys get ready for week 9 and make that final push to the playoffs, man.